Okay, the live stream is up and we can call the meeting. I got about 2 more minutes before 6 o'clock on the dot. So whenever.
Go ahead and start, or shall we wait?
That is totally up to you, Chairperson.
Let's call the meeting to order. Tiffany, may we have a roll call, please?
Of course. Chairperson Phil Goldstein.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Marty Jost.
Here.
Commissioner Lisa Bard.
Here.
Commissioner Eric Westland.
Here.
Alternate Christy Bickley.
Here.
Very good. Commissioners, do you have any amendments to the agenda? I understand, well, we will have a discussion at the end about filling some our vacant seats here, but anybody else have any amendments to the agenda at this point? Nope.
I'm here.
Okay, good. Termination of alternate voting. Christy, you will vote here tonight. Public comment. This is an opportunity for anybody to speak on an item that is not on the agenda. Staff, do we have anybody signed up to speak on an item not on the agenda?
I have no one signed up.
Very good. Then we'll close the general public comment. There is an opportunity for public comment on the business item here later on. Consent agenda consists of approval of the February 2nd meeting minutes. Staff, I understand there's a couple corrections to the minutes.
Yes, Chairperson, we will provide you with a couple of minor corrections. That there's no content change. It was just a few typos or some clerical things that will get cleaned up for the version that you have for signature.
Very good. Commissioners, any additions or corrections to the minutes other than what Matt noted?
Nope.
No, nothing. Okay.
Nothing here.
Very good. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, I understand we need to do a roll call on each vote. Tiffany, would you poll the commissioners, please?
First. Chairperson Phil Goldstein.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Marty Jost.
Yes.
Commissioner Lisa Bard.
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Westland.
Yes.
Alternate Christy Bickley.
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Consent agenda is approved. We have one business item, item 6A, Land Use Code Amendment 10, and I'll turn it over to Matt.
Thank you, Chairperson. We've been working, staff has been working diligently on a handful of amendments to the land use code. We've done, obviously this is amendment number 10, so we've done a bunch before this. The primary purpose of these is, cleanup of some items, clarifications of other items, and then a couple of new items that we're introducing tonight. Like to just very high level talk about a couple of things. There's some notification, public hearing process, child care center locations, parameters, drive-through, stacking spaces, agricultural zoning standards, parking requirements, window well setbacks, chain link fence exceptions, and side yard setback reduction incentive, open space requirements for multifamily. So those are the gist of the amendments. I'll let Kevin Kevin and Chad actually tonight get into the details on each of those, and Kevin will go through the list and with a little more detail, and then at the end we'll circle back and hit each one if there's any comments on each one of those, if you don't mind.
Very good, thanks.
All right, thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Matt. So what I'm going to do real quick is I am going to share my screen so we can just kind of go through each of these together, so everyone can see. Y'all see this all right?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yes.
So just high level, as Matt had mentioned, there's just a couple of kind of cleanup things, and then we've got some additions. So the first one here is just updating table 2.1. The main changes to this is just adding in the neighborhood meeting requirement to this column, just to kind of give some clarity as to what projects require that. And then the other one is just cleaning up this bottom row as well, to change from administrative to town council waiver. That change was done a couple of amendments ago, but this table never got updated to reflect that change. So those are just kind of the two changes to that one. The next one kind of down the line is to section 2.9.4.1. Currently it is about our public hearing notices and notices. So the first change is going to be having the town post the development under review sign. The town currently does that with projects now. The applicant doesn't do that. And then to add in an additional 7 days to post that sign. This is kind of due to having if we have applications come in that are missing materials or need to be updated. Sometimes that takes longer than 7 days to get in. So we just kind of gave ourselves an extra 7 days. Then the other change is that there was kind of a confusing portion of this where it talked about referral notices, where the referral notice was actually generally more towards a public hearing notice. For the public hearing that would come up for a project. The referral notice is more or less a referral letter notification to folks that we work with, such as PFA, Water District, Sewer District, CPW, folks like that, for their review of an application, not a notice of a public hearing. So we just kind of made some clarifying changes to that. The next one down is stacking spaces. We've had a project recently that kind of brought to light that we have some kind of interesting language with stacking spaces and how many are actually required. We kind of had some conflicting information about, is there 10 stacking spaces? Is there 5 stacking spaces? So this one is just kind of cleaning up the number of stacking spaces for car wash, and then a fast food restaurant with drive-through, just to kind of clear that up a little bit. The next one is Daycare Center. So we actually made this change about 2 years ago to add this in. Recently, we've had some folks reach out to the town looking to start a daycare and kind of go through that process, chat with what that's going to be. And we've had some instances where there's been some concern that they might be within 500 feet of an existing daycare, in-home daycare. So we kind of looked at this one, and we can dive into this one a little bit more later, as I'm thinking you guys will want to. But the gist of it is the 500 feet is as the crow flies. So you could have an instance where you have 2 homes separated by a railroad track in totally different neighborhoods that are within 500 feet, but they don't have the same impact to each other that down the street would. So we kind of looked at this, and we kind of liked the idea of how we did the short-term rentals by having a certain total number within the subdivision based off of certificate of occupancies. within that subdivision. That way there's a little bit more flexibility of, the exact locations, but still kind of keeping a cap on the total number of in-home daycares. So this is very similar to the short-term rentals that we've previously approved as well. The next one down the line is we also found we have some conflicting information with the agricultural zoning. We've never really had many applications come in with this. So hasn't really been, one of the things that we've looked at closely. The discrepancy that was found is that in the land use code, it talks about for keeping of large livestock, you have to have a minimum of 2.5 acres to keep any type of large livestock, but and you have to be on agricultural zone property, but the agricultural zone designation needs to have a minimum of 10 acres. So it didn't quite make sense. You couldn't have a 3-acre lot in zoned ag to keep your livestock on. So we're just proposing that to be in alignment of down to 2.5 acres for keeping of large livestock. The next one down is updates to our parking requirements. So when the land use code was adopted, we were going off of the ITE Institute of Traffic Engineers 4th edition or 3rd edition, which was 2010, was when that one was completed. So we're about 10 years out from when we had parking calculations done. So this table here is just showing some changes. So we've added in a couple of new uses to these tables, such as hospital surgery center, changing dental office, kind of getting a little bit more in-depth, health clubs, bowling alleys, pharmacy with drive-through, home improvement stores. And then we have some other ones where we've changed the actual requirement to keep in line with now what the standard is for that the ITE does find. So that's the changes that we have there. The next one is a pretty straightforward one. It's window well setbacks. Currently, we don't have in the land use code allowance for window wells to be within the side yard setback. So what we've done is just added in this one sentence that if it's a part of the foundation design, we've had a couple of lots that have window wells that are integrated within the foundation design to have some more aesthetically pleasing window wells. That's just kind of adding in that one to have that requirement there. As we get on, the next one is about chain link fences. Currently, the town prohibits chain link fences in general. The one thing that we came across and have come across with some other proposals is for sport courts, pickleball, tennis, basketball courts, things like that. Really the best way to do that is with chain link fence. So we're adding in the exception of enclosing sport courts to the allowance of chain link fencing. So the next one we have is setback reduction incentives. So currently our requirement is that every lot in the subdivision has to back to open space. We had a couple of applications that had been in process prior to this incentive being in place that was providing lots that back to open space for some type of side yard reduction. So throughout the years, we've honored those. So what we are proposing with this is that any lot that does back to open space, that has a block of lots that have direct access to public rights of way or open space would be eligible for this incentive. We can go into that one a little bit more, but kind of our thought behind it is that it would allow for a diverse housing product type within a subdivision, kind of as we have done through some of the other subdivisions so far. The next one, which is the big one, is open space requirements. So this just kind of changes up a little bit of language it's open space is directly accessible to this section of the code. But then the next one is this big whole section here. So a little background on that one. Back late 2020, council had kind of directed staff to look at the open space requirements because we've, as you know, we are seeing quite a few more applications come in that have some type of multifamily component, and multifamily is, you know, either single family attached or a multifamily truly with apartments or condominiums. So council had directed staff to kind of look at that a little bit more to see what our requirements are in relation to those higher density uses and the open space requirements for that, to see if we need to do any changes. So staff, we've done some extensive research. Chad can also kind of hit on these a little bit later if you guys have specific questions on this one. But the gist of it is for any single family attached, so townhomes or multifamily condos or apartments in R3 and R4 zoning, the required open space will increase from 20% to 25% being the requirement, with 50% of that being usable open space. So 12.5% of that requirement needs to be usable, and we've kind of listed out those usable definitions down below. We kind of went through a lot of these uses to determine what would necessarily be usable and not usable. It doesn't mean that these developments have to utilize those for every part of their open space. They still have just general open space that they can meet, that they've done for every project that's happened so far from that standpoint. So this is just kind of bringing in a little bit more of kind of a community gathering of sorts to have some types of uses within these projects that do allow for residents of that specific phase or project to have some outdoor recreation areas to take on, to hopefully alleviate burden on existing infrastructure that is of adjacent neighborhoods. So with that, then the last thing that we did was we just added in some definitions to section 11, just to give a little bit more clarifying as to what these types of subdivision processes are. So with that, I will leave it for any questions, or if Matt, you want to add anything on that, we can.
Matt, anything? And then
No, I
I'm
think
going to
that's good. I think
start at the top.
Go ahead.
Go, anything, Matt, you want to add?
No, I was just going to say, I think we can focus on questions and we might tag team the answers to some of these. So,
Okay. Well, if we follow our normal protocol, we'd open it up for public comment first. Do we have anybody? We have one letter that'll we can note when we get to the open space requirements or wherever else it's appropriate according to staff. Is there anybody signed up for public comment?
I do not have anyone signed up for public comment. I did want to note that we did receive an email from John Fusaro that was forwarded around to the commissioners and will be included as part of the town council packet for the final item.
Okay, thank you. That's the one to which I was referring. Well, let's go back to the top. I was jotting these down. That any commissioners, we'll close the public comment, and commissioners, any comments on the neighborhood meeting provision?
None here.
None. Okay. How about the administrative town council waiver issue?
No.
I think the public hearing notice.
Nothing there.
Okay. Stacking spaces. Questions on that?
I did have one question on that. How does that compare to surrounding communities? Is it pretty similar or the same?
We actually haven't looked at surrounding communities for stacking spaces in that regards. I don't know if Matt or Brian kind of knows anything offhand from previous experience with some surrounding ones.
no, I haven't looked at that recently.
Okay.
And we can do that. Marty, if you'd like, we'll do a little research on that. And if you guys are comfortable moving it forward, unless we see something very dramatically different, we can bring that up as a comment from planning committee and council to consider.
And just,
How does this- Go ahead, Marty.
I was just saying, is there, just trying to think of some of the businesses, is there anybody not adhering to this? It's a new regulation, so they shouldn't be, if, you know, but is there any business you can point to that doesn't have this requirement that's existing?
Oh, and all of the ones that we do have with drive-through, actually, their internal requirements are that they have plenty of stacking spaces.
Mhm.
I know with COVID it's a little bit different with how things go, but you could effectively design a site to have 50 stacking spaces, and at times that wouldn't necessarily work. So all of the ones that we have currently, there's not a single one that doesn't meet this requirement. Most of them, if anything, well exceed this requirement that we have.
Okay, thanks. And Matt, no big deal. I was just seeing if you guys knew offhand. No need to do a research project.
Okay, thanks.
I have a little bit of ancillary information on that, Marty. For example, the town of Windsor has, their standard is 5. And I think that applies for both fast food and for banks. And every one of those types of projects I've ever worked on, the applicant actually wants to have more stacking. They want to make sure that they get the proper amount of stacking in there so they get the flow through of operations. So generally their requirements are larger than the municipality. But I think 5 is a pretty good standard.
All right, thank you.
Is there any provision that, question on the stacking, is there any provision for variances on this, up or down, depending on circumstances?
If they wanted to go less, they would have to come before Planning Commission and Town Council for that approval.
And there's no provision for requiring more, I presume, then?
No, there's not a provision that they'd have to come back to you guys to request for more. If they provide it, then they're meeting and exceeding that requirement. But if they want to provide less, they'd have to come before Planning Commission and Council as a waiver to allow that.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else on the stacking spaces? Okay.
None here.
Daycare centers, number 5. Any questions, commissioners?
Do we have any areas that exceed this today that we know of?
What do you, that would exceed this proposed number of COs permits?
Yeah.
We do not actually know.
Okay, all right, thanks.
One thing, I know we had a significant amount of comments on this when we brought it forward a few years ago. And our attempt was with 500 feet issue, but then we saw that there are challenges. So one of the things we added in is that no care homes can be immediately adjacent to or across the street from one another. So there is that provision so that you wouldn't end up with maybe 2 or 3 right next to each other. They'd be separated at least by one house or a couple houses. So and staff, we can also push things with if we feel like there's a real problem going to surface, we can try to redirect this a little bit too and give council an opportunity to make decision on it.
I thought it was written well, and I think it's well thought out. And with that provision that they can't be, right adjacent or across from each other, that solves or at least addresses some of those concerns of right next to each other. I think based on the number of COs is more reasonable than space.
2 questions for me. How do these numbers compare to other surrounding communities? And do the operators of these childcare homes have to file an application with the town, or what's the process for tracking those?
So I can answer the second one a little bit quicker. So to have an in-home daycare, you have to be licensed with the state. To have either up to 8 or 12, I believe, are currently news code caps at 8 for that. So they have to be licensed with the state, and to get that license with the state, they have to have an approval letter from the town. So when we did this amendment about 2 years ago, as I think is when we did it, part of the requirements is that they have to do it's basically an application, which also includes an approval from your HOA or Metro District, and you have to get a home inspection done to be in alignment with Appendix M of the IRC, so that there's adequate egress, things like that. So there is a process that's already in place for these that they do have to go through, and then you have to get the full approved license with the state. They need a letter from the town acknowledging that they are approved to do that. As for surrounding municipalities, that was not quite sure what some of them do. I think a lot of them are really unique with what their requirements are, but we didn't dive into that one too much either. With what surrounding ones do.
As much curiosity as anything, I think, as Lisa said, I think it's well written and makes sense to me. So thank you, Kev.
Yep.
Anything else on the daycare center? The dimensional standard, the agricultural dimensional standards.
Do we have any properties that fall under this? Just out of curiosity.
We do. We do have a couple of properties that are zoned agricultural. More or less, they are the Thornton Farms and the town-owned K&M Farms up north. We do have a couple in the Timoth South, kind of the Graves properties is what they're known as. That they meet this. They are zoned agricultural. Discussions with one of them was actually what kind of opened this one up, because we were looking at the requirements and then found the discrepancy. So we do have a couple. The other thing that Matt and I have talked about with this one as well is that if as we start growing the town north within the GMA, we're probably starting to get some more agricultural zone properties that do want to come in. From that standpoint, that could be 3-acre lots type situation. For having horse properties, something like that. So that's more or less kind of what our thought was with that. But we have a couple that would fall under this.
Okay. I just was asking for clarification purposes, that's all.
Yep.
Commissioners, anything else on this one? Okay.
No.
Parking requirements.
I have a question on this. So always a hot topic, it seems. And I think about our meeting December in regards to rendezvous with our pickleball courts and pool area.
Yep.
How would this new chart affect the required parking at a property like that? That, our old docs, I think, required 51 spaces that obviously were deemed far too many. Does this new chart address that situation?
Yes, and as I'm reading through it right now, I think that one actually got omitted. Matt, are you seeing it?
No, I was looking for the court thing as well. I thought we had a court line item in here, but
We did. I think it got missed.
Good catch, Eric.
we were.
But to your point, Eric, that was one of the ones that we were adding in, and we will have to double check that. But I believe it was 6 per court is what the ITE recommended. So it would have reduced that parking by about 22 spaces required, because I believe just with the size of the pickleball courts, those were going to be required to have the most, and I think that was at 31 spaces. Just because it was based off of square footage.
We did 3 per court, Kevin.
We did 3 per court. Okay, so I was thinking the 2 courts combined at 6.
I'm just curious how with the courts and the square footage of the pool area and that lot, if what we had requested from Hartford would fit the same criteria. So
yeah,
I don't need an answer right now, but curious.
Yep. what you actually requested would have been sufficient for the pickleball courts with the new requirement at 3 per court.
Very good. Thank you.
That was the compromise, the minimum compromise
Yep.
amount, Kevin, right? As I recall.
Yep. It was, but that overall parking requirement would have dramatically dropped from that standpoint, because as I mentioned, just the square feet of the pickleball courts, I think, was generating the 30 or so spaces from that, just based off of that square footage. So that would have dropped from 30 down to 6. So we're talking 24 spaces in general. So there would have been a significant drop from that one.
So these requirements would meet what we asked of them.
Yes.
The new requirements would. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And
So I
Eric,
have a-
that's a
I have
good
a-
comment. Sorry, Lisa, that's a good comment. We will actually, if, with your permission, we'll make a note of the planning commission comment in the staff report to town council, and we'll include that one that we omitted there. So at least it's captured in the version that they'll be approving or reviewing.
I'm great with that, Matt. Thank you.
Good,
Thank you.
good catch, Eric. Anything else on the parking?
Yeah, on the last line where you've got copy print and express shop, why is it an NA? Are you just not changing it from the 3,400 square feet?
No, we are not changing it. The only addition to that is really adding in express ship store, so like a FedEx type of a situation. We're kind of lumping that within it. So the only thing that we're changing with that is actually the title to be copy print and express ship store.
Okay, but it will have a 1 for 400 square feet. Okay,
Yep, that will stay at 1 per 400.
okay.
Anything else on this one? Window well stand setbacks.
So because I'm unfamiliar with it, so these are for window wells that are part of the foundation, so they are not, normal window wells extend out.
Yep.
Ones that are part of the foundation don't extend out as much?
They extend out a little bit more. So we've had some instances where the homeowner wants to kind of do a pretty extensive window well just for aesthetics, kind of like a stepped that has planting beds to it, some things like that, to where it goes above and beyond what a window well is. So your standard, metal window well that most builders do, that is an allowed part of the setback. But when it's part of the integral to the foundation design, that's when we're not doing the closer than 2 feet to the property line, or that that are allowed to do that. But the ones that are, they have to meet that setback from that standpoint, because they are essentially part of the foundation at that point, and then all of the foundation needs to meet the required setbacks.
Okay, so
the way
because
that
they're,
the way that this is written is confusing.
Yeah.
So I think we got to
Because
either take out the not part of the foundation design, or we need to make sure that it's clear that when the ones that are part of the foundation design are no closer than this, if we're comfortable with that.
so what it amounts to is if they are part of the foundation design, then that, because they are, the exterior limit of that window well is the foundation, and then that's where that setback starts.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, it might need some clarification, but maybe I'm just overthinking it.
No, I think on face value, I think we probably ought to make sure that it's abundantly clear. So we know the intent. If everybody's uncomfortable with the intent, we will clean up the language to actually get that dialed in.
Okay, when we get around to voting on this, I'll make note of the couple things where we thought we needed clarification. So far, we got the parking and this one. Commissioners, anything else on window well setbacks?
Nothing here.
Chain link fences.
My only question on that is sport court well enough defined where somebody can't try to, a loophole or something that they put a chain link fence around a swimming pool or something like that?
I think our interpretation of a sport court would not include a swimming pool from that standpoint. When we might need to look at actually defining sport court a little bit more within the definitions. But yeah, a sport court, if somebody did come with an application to us that was trying to enclose a pool, that's not necessarily a sport court in staff's eyes. So we might just need to kind of define that one down a little bit more.
If you get it, I mean, it seems like from what you said, you'd get it in the application process. So that's fine. That's good.
Yep.
Anything else? Chain link fences. Setback reduction provisions. Questions, commissioners?
None here.
None? Okay. Moving on, open space requirements. And Kevin, would you mention your thoughts on the letter that was received in our packet late today about from John Fusaro? Is there merit in pursuing it through that avenue?
We can definitely look at some type of language to add into that. Not entirely sure if if we want to specifically call out CSU to do that. There could be, for all we know, some private companies that do some type of reporting or extensive research onto things like that could an applicant could hire to do such a thing. Since we work with CPW now, that's the reason why we had added in that their requirement from that standpoint, just because that is a state organization, not a specific one to CSU. So we could look at adding in some type of language to state that some type of horticulture report would need to happen, something along those lines. Matt,
Yep.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that one.
Yeah, what we've done, what other places do in this instance is they have a independent third-party analysis or they either wetlands or natural areas or habitat, or they'll come at it from a third-party contracted report, ecological characterization report. And we would accept something like that would give us, some of the foundation for this. So we could add some language in there to help clarify what options there are for what we would review against.
In the event that Mr. Fusaro is not watching, would one of you please reach out to him and or just reply and let him know about the brief discussion on this and that it's been taken to heart? There may be some alternatives.
Sure, we will. Yep.
Please, thank you. And then other questions on open space requirements, commissioners?
There was a letter in the packet. Should we mention that? From
This is what we were
Hartford.
talking about.
Yep. So thank you, Marty. So there was part of this process was we had reached out to the developer community, their applicants, just kind of a list of folks throughout every project in town to kind of put them on notice that this change was coming, and to get any of their feedback. I'll actually go down to that letter. So we got this back from Hartford Homes, who does Wild Wing and Trailside, also known as Rendezvous. So I had actually gone through all of these with Dave Thorpe there from that standpoint for what the requirements are. I mean, for the first one, this is kind of in relation to having a separate site within a master plan community. He and I went through that one, that the separate site would still need to meet this requirement that you can't take open space percentages from the community and apply them towards an individual site that could have apartments or things like that. The next one is that's down town standard now, that a final plat that can proceed with any approved preliminary plat, as they've already had that kind of preliminary vested rights to it. The green courts in front of like an alley loaded home, I mentioned them, if it can meet the requirement of usable open space, it could be counted towards that. But if not, it could still be included as just general open space that they would still have to have regardless. And then the last one is something that Matt and I have kind of chatted about quite a bit through this process. And if there was a clear full master plan for single family detached and single family attached, then yeah, we would allow those to share the park infrastructure and adjacent amenities as well, because it would be designed all as one. It wouldn't be kind of sectioned off to then come back for further site plans.
Okay.
That seems reasonable, certainly. All those. Other questions on the open space changes? All right. And then lastly, the definitions. Any questions on those definitions?
Bill, I did have a couple of questions on some of the open space stuff.
Back
Well,
on
actually-
the, okay, we're back on the open space. Go ahead.
No, I think most of my questions actually come on the definitions. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
I can't
That's
read my
all
own
right.
notes, people.
Lisa, are you talking the definitions of open space or just definitions in general?
The land use, the open space definitions.
Okay.
Sorry.
Which one?
I'd say go for it.
Okay. On the first one on the agricultural preservation, it is talking about agricultural land preservation must be blah, blah, blah. And then commercially viable farms and productive agricultural land, which incidentally provides open space amenities. Can you explain what open space amenities need to be provided for agricultural preservation? I mean, what does that mean for you guys?
So, are you going to take that one, Matt?
Oh yeah, you got it.
I was going to say, yeah, I'll take this one. So, the intent of this one is we kind of just threw this one out there. We actually don't really see this one happening, if anything, more in our lifetime. But we do, within our GMA, we do have the CSU RDEC facility, which is their agricultural center. So kind of the thought that we had is, as we kind of grow north, we could have some areas that could be designed and planned to have some type of small community farm within it. That could be somebody, a developer could partner with CSU for, hey, you provide X amount of acres for farmland, to us, and we'll pay you for the crop, things like that. So that's the intent of agricultural preservation, is that you could have a community design around effectively a larger community garden that has farmland. So with that then does come some of the other open space amenities. Could on the boundary of it, you could have maybe a park, you could have bench areas, some things like that that would be on the outskirts of that property. But that's really the intent of that agricultural preservation. We kind of knew it would be a little bit of a far stretch with that, but we wanted to provide that as an option if anyone so chose.
But it is basically, it's a public property that is for that use of agricultural preservation.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Get another couple questions on the definitions.
Yeah, and the other one was relative to courtyards and plazas. If it's going to be surrounded by 3 or more sides, it essentially could be an enclosed courtyard. And my go-to is, if it's enclosed, it's not an open space, nor is it available for use for everybody else. It is a very blocked off area. How do we justify a courtyard being considered open space?
I was going to say, Chad, do you maybe want to try and dive into that one, since you did some more research on that?
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner, for the question. So with that one, it's a good question, being that it could be surrounded by 3. The intent when we came up with the definition, was to prove that these land uses were actually accessible to the residents in the actual area, whether that be the multifamily or to adjacent properties by trails or other means of transportation. So I think that one could be one that we add the condition with the council's approval that it just depends on when it's used and how it's used and how they provide that access and accessibility within that unit.
Well, I guess my objection or concern would be it says bounded on 3 or more sides. If it's just bounded on 3 sides, then you do have access. You know, there's plenty of courtyards that somebody's walking by and they can just kind of dive right in. But if it's bounded on 3 or more, if it's bounded on 4 sides, they have to actually go through a door. They have to go through a wall to get there. And then I question whether that's open space.
So to that point, Lisa, we're not, that's not the intent that it's fully enclosed, and we might need to just change that language.
That's what
So
I'm
you
saying.
could, yeah, we could still have 4 individual buildings that would make up the 4 sides to where there's still some open corridors between those buildings that could then allow access into it. So, and thank you for pointing that out. We could probably kind of tweak that language a little bit, but yeah, it's not intended to be a full, rectangle or square. It's essentially what we're kind of getting at is you're going to have 3 or 4 individual buildings fronting this courtyard area with still having walkable paths and things like that.
Yeah, then I think it's just a matter of clarifying the
Yep.
words.
We can do that.
Okay. And the last one, sorry guys. How is a rooftop considered open space? Just saying.
I think that's a Matt Blakely one.
Well, again, it actually is similar to your courtyard comment,
Yeah.
Because if it's not accessible to the general public, so that is the challenge is usable open space by its definition. Is it allowed? Is it meant to be accessed by the public in its entirety, or is it the development that it's serving?
Right.
So I think there's a slight variation there where even back to the courtyard comment, it could be entirely enclosed and still be counted as usable in my mind if the residents have access to it freely. So it's not necessarily open to the general public at large, but it's open to the residents of that community. So that I think would be a question for you all is, do you feel like that one way or the other is better or more acceptable or not? And so the rooftop, again, if it's accessible to the entirety of that residential community, if they can all get there, do whatever they want to do up there, if it's a picnic area or a lounging area or even a little small garden space or whatever, that if all the people can get there live in the community, is that acceptable as usable open space? And I look to you to help.
The fact that it says considered on a case-by-case basis,
Sure.
to me tends to cover it. But I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say.
Well, it's not terribly different than like a clubhouse, right?
Right. That was going to be my question is, do we have other land use codes where parcels of land or open space are only really accessible to that community or to that neighborhood? And if so, then a rooftop qualifies under Matt's explanation.
Well, there are like the Timnah South Clubhouse. There's the clubhouse itself, which is obviously you have to be a member to get in. And then there's the pool area and playground area that's fenced off, that again, you have to have a membership kind of access to get to it. And by these definitions, we would say that not the clubhouse itself, we're not saying that's open space because it's not outside space, but the pool, and not the pool surface, but the deck area and the playground areas associated with it, even though they're inside the fence, we would do a little tabulation that that counts those deck areas, those gathering spaces as usable open space, because truly the people that have access to it, it is usable by them as open space outdoor.
Okay.
So, but that I'm saying from staff's perspective, that's our approach, how we approach this. If the planning commission feels like we're not on track, we can kind of redirect, but really want to have a dialogue about it versus this being the mandate. It's kind of, this is what our proposal is in this sense.
Does the case-by-case language give us leeway that if a proposal came forward and all of the open space had been limited access to residents only, that we could say that wasn't acceptable? Does the language in here give us that leeway?
And maybe that is the play, Eric, where there's even another, I'd hate to even slice it even further, but maybe no more than a certain 5% may be usable, that exclusive to the residents or something like that.
I think that's a smart way to word it, Matt, because I could see someone getting the idea that they're going to get their open space credit, but then limit access to all of that only to residents. And I think that would defeat the purpose of this.
Yeah. And Matt and Erica, I'm going to throw a different version out. Matt, instead of trying to slice this down further, is maybe we just include language that states all, private usable open space needs to be approved by planning commission and council. So then as we come forward, it's noted that, hey, here's what open space is, that is for the general public could have access to, and then here's the open space that is, for the residents of this community. That way it's then kind of decided, because we could, like to your point, Eric, we could have a situation where somebody comes forward with, let's say, 5% of that, usable open space that is dedicated towards, just the residents, but they've done it in such a unique way that, it's a huge amenity for that, that actual development. So keeping in line with that, I kind of would suggest, let's maybe tweak the language to say that the private of sorts, usable open space will have to be approved by planning commission and council.
I think that's a good way to address that. I think you want people to have that ability to do that, but
Yep.
with limits. Yeah, I like it.
Everybody else okay with that, Lisa? Would you be all right with that? Okay. What else, Lisa? Anything else in the definitions?
Nope, that's it. Thanks
Anybody
for
else
hearing
in
me
the
out.
definitions? Okay, I show that we needed some slight language change on the parking requirements for courts. We actually needed to add something, a line for that. I had a note on window well setbacks, but I can't remember what that was. What?
We just need to tweak the language to make it a little bit more clear as to.
Okay. Good. And then the open space requirement in general, we were going to add some language somewhere there too, correct?
Yeah, we'll look at adding language about private, usable open space needing to be approved by planning commission and council.
Okay.
And you had another one.
Courtyards.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep, courtyard language being tweaked as well.
Okay, and rooftop open space. That would be parsed during the process as they come through with the planners anyway, I would imagine, but it was good. It was good to bring it up. I think it's good to make that change. Commissioners, did I miss anything as far as the various amendments or slight language changes that you all brought up? I think
You had one more, Chairperson, about the, and I use the term ecological characterization report, relative to consideration for native landscape kind of scenarios, or this was brought up by one of the public comments. So we're going to look into not specifically calling out CSU, but calling out by some third party independent.
Yes. That's the one that's the one I was mentioning when we were talking on item 10, open space requirements. Okay, I think that captures it. Staff, commissioners, anything else regarding the one business item, all these various amendments?
I wanted to point out, we have a definition for sports courts with that chain link fence here now. Does that encompass what we need for the concerns Marty has, like somebody just randomly going, oh yeah, look, this is a sport court. Does this needing nets, backboards, things like that encompass it for when things come up?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's in the usable open space definitions, but it actually could be used double duty. We might actually, how we were gonna put this in the code was this was gonna be in the definition section all together as one big chunk. Whereas we could take the same definition and pull it out and put it into the main body of the definition, so we capture it even if they'd be identical to one another. So, but this definition, if this meets Marty's thoughts on what would be considered eligible for the chain link fence, then we might be able to do double duty with it.
Yeah, I had seen that definition. It was a little bit open, but that combined with the review is good enough for me.
Okay, good call, Christy, Marty. All right, with that, we need a motion to approve item 6A, the land use code amendments with the changes, modifications, language tweaking that we just discussed. Do I have a motion to approve these?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right.
I hate awkward silence.
Did you get, somebody got that? Okay. All right. Tiffany, would you poll the commissioners, please?
Somehow you're muted, but not muted.
Really? Can you
There
hear me
you
now?
go.
There you are.
Okay, great. That was weird. Okay. Chairperson Phil Goldstein,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Marty Joes,
Approved?
Commissioner Lisa Bard,
Approved.
Commissioner Eric Westland,
Approved.
Alternate Christy Bickley.
Approved.
Very good. Unanimous. Good work, staff, commissioners. All right, we'll move on to reports. Only thing I have is Matt, anything you'd like to share with the commissioners about we have 2 vacant seats now. We've got an advertisement open. It started out with 1 for an alternate. Anything you would like to share about that process?
What we might do, we were going to have that process end at the end of February. We might extend it a little bit into March. What I'd like to do, though, is I want to get a couple people lined up because the terms are ending at the end of March. So like to have, when those terms come up, we'd be kind of putting the new people in and rearranging things all at the same time. Christy would most likely, we would recommend, I guess, with your planning commission's permission, to move Christy to a full seat, and then the 2 new people would both move into the alternate positions. So, but there's some shuffling of the deck there that would need to happen. At the end of March is when all the terms come up. So it would probably be the first meeting for the town council in April to make all those appointments and recommendations. Is that?
Yeah, and then we still we'll find some time that's convenient for everybody. Now although Christie's picking things up pretty quickly here, obviously, but we still ought to have at least a refresher course, although it'll probably be more of an educational course. And we've got to add that to the mix as well, but trust your judgment on that. in the timing.
And I've actually already reached out to DOLA. They do have a virtual webinar for a planning commissioner refresher course. It's like an hour or so, an hour to 2 hour course. So I know, that's a time commitment, but we might pick one of the meeting nights and just have it be a work session kind of a thing. I'd hate to have it be where we're just watching somebody else give a presentation, be a little more engaging where you can ask questions and have conversations with them. So we'll see how that plays out. I haven't heard back from them yet, but hopefully I will soon and we can get something dialed in. Probably do that in the April timeframe so that we can get everybody seated and then and have that. So it might be the second meeting in April or maybe the first meeting in May kind of a thing for that.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else? Any questions for staff? Aaron's not on with us, is he? Aaron Adams?
No.
No, okay. And staff, any planners, anything else?
I don't have anything new this week.
I'm good.
All right. Don, anything?
I don't think so. Things are, the snowstorm was a little bit of a non-event, but we got through it. And but the cold was not anything I relished at all. Cold was unpleasant to me.
Amen.
Yeah,
I know
young guys
that's
don't
more
like the
information
cold.
than you needed, Phil, but I didn't have anything else to tell you.
Okay. I will tell you that as you predicted, the offshoot, no pun intended, of plowing additional streets. Our association, I had some complaints about driveways being covered in even with that little bit of snow. And I gave him your number to call, but I told him I told them you predicted that would be the next thing. You solve one problem and create another one. But
Yep.
it is what it is.
I bet there's a lot less of those than when it wasn't plowed at all, though.
Probably.
Well, we're going to find out.
Yeah.
We're going to find out. But thank you for distributing my phone number. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right, Commissioners, anything else?
I had one question. Along Latham, there's a lot of utility markings on the east and west side. I assumed the east side was the Thornton project, but I didn't know why they were doing, is it all part of the same, why they're marking both sides?
Depends on where it's at. Where are you talking about? Is it south of Busgrove? North? Where is
North.
it? North of Busgrove?
Yeah.
I don't know. The honest answer is I don't know, but it probably has something to do with one of those pipelines.
Okay. Because I assume they were running it on the east side, not the west side.
It is planned on the east side. You're right. At least currently.
Anything else?
I did have one other thing. We are working on the reservoir shoreline improvements, the wall construction out there. I do have a drone video that if anybody's interested, I can screen share and show you. It's from today, so you can see the snow and kind of where they're at on the wall, if anybody's interested in that. And we can actually do that after the meeting. If you guys want to adjourn, I can share it after. We've all, anybody who wants to go can. Just wanted to throw that opportunity out there.
Yeah, it'd be fun to see. I'd be up for it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Very good. Well, let's so we can adjourn formally. Let's have a motion. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Tiffany?
Can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Yes.
Good. Chairperson Phil Goldstein,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Marty Jost,
Yes.
Commissioner Lisa Bard,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Westland,
Yes.
Alternate Christy Bickley.
Yes.
Thank you. We're adjourned.
Woohoo.
Good.
All right, you're going to share your. All right, here we go. Wow, look at that.
Yeah, quite a bit of snow out there right now.
Drones are so cool.
They are. It's nice because I had some engineers go out and fly this today, so I didn't even actually have to get cold.
You guys don't even
And
know
Brian,
what
you
cold
can-
is.
you
You're
can-
not trying to feed cattle in 25 or 35 below degrees. This is nothing.
Correct.
You're not
Brian,
chopping
you can
ice.
tell them there is earlier video of this if they want to see it without snow.
Oh yeah, there are a couple of on the town's YouTube channel. There's a couple of earlier videos from I think there's one about from every 2 weeks or so posted on the town's YouTube channel. It's funny that most of the wall is actually covered in snow, and then they've got
Now,
the
what are they
riprap.
actually doing out there? What is happening?
You'll see it in just one. So you can see they're moving those blocks with the Bobcat there, and so what they're doing is they're building this modular block reinforced wall to solidify the shoreline. The base course is blocks that are 5 feet deep, 4 feet wide, and 18 inches tall. And then we go to a block above that for the next 3 tiers that are 41 inches deep, but the same 4 feet wide and 18 inches tall. So you can see kind of that perspective view is a little bit better.
Why don't you pause it right there, Brian? If you can.
So you can see, yeah, that's all the new wall that's being installed there. I think that's probably, there might be one more section that goes on top of that. I think that's 4 courses high. There's one more course that goes on top of that. And then what you see here is a drain pipe penetration as well as here. And if we go a little bit further, you can see where these sweep in. That's one of our sets of stairs. So there'll be 2 sets of stairs included with this. So the stairs are kind of very wide, shallow steps that step down to the reservoir. And then there's a big concrete pad at the bottom of them. So if you're bringing a kayak or a stand-up paddleboard or something like that, or even a little non-motorized fishing boat with a trolling motor, you can kind of come down these gentle steps into the reservoir.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will remarkably change the shoreline there, I think, for the better when we get to the summer.
You're really making good usable space there. That's awesome.
Yep. And we actually just completed a survey, which I appreciate anybody who filled out the survey and helped pass it along. And we'll be presenting those results to council on Tuesday, getting some feedback and then some direction on the design. It looked like we had 525 respondents, which is the most we've ever had for a parks type survey. So we're really, really excited to get that kind of participation. So if anybody took this or went ahead and shared it with their friends, we really appreciate that.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Very good.
Thank
stuff.
you.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Have a
Okay,
good night.
good night.
We'll see you.
Have a
Bye
good
now.
evening.